Hi, I'm Jordan Raycroft. I'm a singer-songwriter in the band Raycroft, and we're a folk band from the Niagara region.
My dear, you're living in the past, so you're there the other day.
I got into music when I was quite young. I was kind of forced into piano lessons as a kid, and then my piano teacher told me to quit because I was wasting my parents' money. And then for my 10th birthday, I begged and begged, and I got a drum kit. So I started drumming. I took drum lessons for about 6 years, and it was in my dorm room at the University of Guelph where I actually kind of converted my room into like a little recording studio.
So far from home, and it's so far from good, and it's so far from good, because it's so far from home.
The first chorus of Dancing with the Branches says, "So far from home and it's so far so good." And that's kind of just describing, you know, you walk away from your faith a little bit, start making your own rules, your own choices, and oh, this is great. And then the last chorus, it goes, "So far from home, so far from good." And that was kind of this realization of, you know, being away from God sucks. And it's funny because I wrote that song in a time in my life where I would consider myself, I was a little more grounded in my faith, and then within my second year of university, I kind of started making some choices that were putting things between myself and God. And that song, which I originally wrote about other people that I was observing, kind of stepping away from their faith, became like this foreshadowing of me stepping away from my faith and then kind of realizing, hey, this isn't the greatest thing to do. So I kind of lived out that song, Dancing with the Branches. I kind of lived out Dancing with the Branches after I wrote it. So. I wrote Cold Hands in one sitting, a 45-minute sitting, top to bottom. I'm a big fan of Johnny Cash. He's a big influence for me. And I remember just sitting down and I thought, I want to write a song like Johnny Cash.
That's where I'm going, say I'm doing time. They got me on a leash now, honey, tearing through my mind, yeah. Say they got me murder of the first degree. They got me praying forgiveness now. They want me on my knees, yeah.
Obviously, I had to talk about killing a man, but there's a deeper meaning to the song than just murder. Cold Hands is about killing a part of yourself that's no good, doing rid of the nonsense in your life. Being a pastor's kid is an interesting thing. You know, you're definitely held to a higher standard than I think most people in the church. I remember as a kid, one time in elementary school, I pulled the chair out and he fell and he ended up crying. And I remember the teacher being like, "Aren't you supposed to be a pastor's kid or something?" And I've had a lot of that in my childhood. Aren't you supposed to be a pastor's kid? So it's been good though. I've loved having a ministry family.
Yeah, I'm a man of my word. Yeah, I'm a preacher's son. And I'm gonna put you down for what you've gone and done. And I said, oh, the storm's coming now. You best be running now. Look out, the storm's coming around. You best be running now.
Having a pastor as a dad, when I first started playing shows, I remember him kind of being a little sketchy about me playing all these shows in bars and, you know, in places that most Christians wouldn't be okay with me going. And, you know, I kind of justified it to him by saying, like, "Dad, look, like, I get to be a voice to these people who you would never get to stand up in front of and talk, right? Like, I get to share my songs and personal experiences and my story of my faith to all these people who you could never go into this bar and start preaching to them." And that's not what my goal is. My goal isn't to be preachy, it's to be real, it's to build relationships with people and for the people to, again, to just, when they hear my songs, to think that that song was written for me, and for that to change their life in that way, for a seed to be planted there. And in terms of the band coming on board, like, they're all really solid Christian guys, and I'm just so excited for where God is going to take us, and for the ministry opportunities that will come out of, playing wherever they'll let us play. I was first introduced to the issue of human trafficking when I was about 16, 17. I came across this YouTube documentary that was just like a one-man handy-cam documentary, and it was about the child sex trade in Romania. And it was actually the child sex trade which primarily dealt in homeless boys. And I remember watching that documentary, and I finished it, and I just broke down, and I just cried. And I remember thinking, like, God, like, how can you let this happen? And I went and I watched it again. And the second time I watched it again, I remember just being like, I need to do something about this. Since that point has been a theme in my life. And, in my studies with school, I went to the University of Guelph, and I graduated criminal justice and public policy major. And it still is my goal, is to work fighting human trafficking in some capacity. And it's funny because I've made plans, right, to hopefully go on an internship to do these things. And God throws these other windows here and there, and with the Juno nomination, it's kind of like, well, I should really pursue that while I have the opportunity. The way I got into it, I wasn't ever planning to make music a career, and it's still something that's weird to kind of say that it is. I just started doing it because it was easy for me to express myself through that.
Hey, Mr. Lionheart, I'm not afraid. I'm just not as brave as you've seen the waterline leaving the shore, while I can barely roar. She stole, she stole, she stole, she stole my heart.
It's interesting because a lot of other artists who I'm friends with, or famous artists, you hear like, oh yeah, I knew I was meant for this. And with me, I still don't know if I'm meant for this. But I'm just kind of living it out day by day, and I want to be a voice for the voiceless. And if being a musician is how God wants me to do that, then hey, I'm into that.
She stole, she stole my heart. Hey, Mr. Tin Man, please loan me your heart. It seems I've broken